All right, peeps, here we go. First new lesson video. What if? Okay, first thing we got to talk about before we can go further into this unit is classifying polynomials, right? Polynomials is what this whole section and the next one pretty much is all about. So to define polynomials, it's a monomial. That means a single term. That's stuff that's just being multiplied or raised to a power or divided, right? That's a term. Monomial is when there's one term, or if you add a bunch of them up, that forms polynomials as long as the powers are all positive whole numbers and the coefficients are real, meaning there's no square roots of negatives or anything like that. Anything that would make it imaginary would make it coefficients, square roots of negative numbers are imaginary, that stuff is not allowed. So looking over here at these examples, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 terms and all of their powers. This is a power of 0. They are all positive whole numbers. 2, 0, 1, 3. All the coefficients, 5, 7, negative 4, 2. Check. That one is a polynomial. This next one, though, if you look at it, we've got a 4x squared, good. Negative 6x, good. 2x to the negative fifth. That right there is not positive. So we would say that this one is not a polynomial. All right, so not a polynomial. Now, standard form for polynomials is when they're written in descending order according to the powers. That means you start with the biggest and go to the smallest. For example, this one here, the biggest power is this 3 right here. So that's the biggest. So that whole term is going to go first. 2x to the third. And then next is the 5x squared, positive 5x squared. And then minus 4x. The sign always goes with it. Make sure the sign to the left goes with it. And then this guy right here, this plus 7, he has a power of 0. Right? Because if you remember, x to the 0 is 1. So 7x to the 0 would just be 7. It's actually called a constant term. And that would be standard form. So biggest to smallest according to power. Make sure whatever the sign was before you moved it stays with that term. Okay, 2 things we're going to classify by is the number of terms. Terms, again, being things that are added and subtracted together. So terms are the expressions that are being added and subtracted together. So added or subtracted together. Right here, this first one's called a monomial because there's a single term. One single term. Notice that there is nothing being added or subtracted to the 3x. It's just a term by itself. There's no pluses or minuses. That is called one term or a monomial. Next one, notice you have a 3x plus 2. That plus right there is what separates these two terms. So now it's got 2 terms, and the name is a binomial. These are words you've heard before. I'm just breaking it down and kind of explaining a little bit more what it means. This one says x squared plus 3x, so those are 2 separate terms, plus 2, that makes it 3 terms, which is called a trinomial. Now, anything beyond 3 terms, right, here we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different things being added and subtracted. We just call it a polynomial. You could say for this one would be a polynomial with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 terms. That would be a little bit more descriptive way of identifying it or classifying it. Okay, so one way we classify is by the number of terms. Now another way we classify is by the degree. Degree, if you remember, is the highest power, and that degree right there gives you a second name. So if the degree is 0, the name is a constant, and here's an example. And again, like on the previous page, this is like 2x to the 0. X to the 0 is 1, which is why it's a number without any variables. That's called a constant. When it's got a degree of 1, then it's called a linear. And right here, this is the highest power. That power right there is a 1. Okay, degree of 2 is quadratic. Those should all be normal words that you've seen before. Right here, that makes it quadratic. This one right here is cubic because its highest power is a 3. Quartic, think quarter, right? 4 quarters in a dollar. And then quintic is for 5. Now, anything 6 or more would be called a blank degree, whatever. So 6 would be 6th degree. Or maybe it was 10. So it was 10th degree. So 2 names you're going to give it. One of them is going to be classifying by the number of terms, right? Monomial, binomial, trinomial, or polynomial with so many terms. Then the other one is you're going to classify it by degree. So let's look at an example. Looking at this one, I can see that the degree right here is a 2. And then the number of terms, let's see, there's 1, 2, 3 terms. So degree says it is a quadratic. Okay, quadratic. And then the number of terms, the 3, says it's a trinomial. Okay, and that's it. You're just going to give it 2 words, 2 names, right? 2 classifications, something by the degree, which goes first, and then the number of terms goes afterwards. All right, this next one, let's see, the degree is 3. So our first word is going to be cubic. And then the number of terms, there's 1, 2 terms, which if you look back, and again, you might know these already if you think about it, when you're introduced to it, mono means 1, bi means 2, tri means 3, so that should be an easy way to remember those. So this would be a cubic binomial. Okay, this one, it's a number, which means this degree is 0, right? Remember that this is 5x to the 0. Okay, the number of, so that first one, the degree says our name is a constant. So we're going to say constant for the first word. And then we've got 1 term, which means it's a monomial. Okay, this next one, degree, let's see, the highest number is a 4. That means our first name is going to be quartic. So Quaartic. Careful, you don't mix that up with quadratic. And then the number of terms we've got here is 1, 2, 3, 4. That number of terms was 4. That means it's just a polynomial, but we can say with how many terms. So we could say here that this is a quartic polynomial. And then just to be more specific, we could say with 4 terms. Maybe, yeah, that works. Okay, degree and number of terms. So, next examples. The degree on this guy, highest power is a 1, which means it's going to be linear. And then the number of terms is 2, which is binomial. Okay, highest power here is 3. That means it's cubic again. Oops. And then the number of terms, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4. So it would be a cubic polynomial with 4 terms. Okay, this next one, let's see, the highest power. Now don't be fooled. You make sure that you look for that highest power. Degrees of 5. So this one's going to be a quintic. And then, whoops, I repeat myself a lot, huh? Now there's 4 terms again. So again, it'll be a quintic polynomial with 4 terms. Should have made that bigger. Notice how sometimes I write in cursive and sometimes I write in regular print. Never consistent. Okay, this one, degree 7. Let's see, I don't remember what that said to do, right? For degrees 7, 6 or more, you say the blank degree. So for this one, it would be a 7th degree. And then the rest of the description comes from the number of terms, which is 1, 2, 3 terms, which is a trinomial. So this one would be called a 7th degree trinomial. Not too bad, yeah. 7th degree trinomial. All right, 2 things, degree, number of terms. You will need to have these 2 classification lists memorized, but that's basically all this is about. Thank you and goodbye.